Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Naomi. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, obviously Naomi's kind of dealing with the aftermath of, obviously she's known what she is, and obviously she's in the process of getting trained by D to learn how to use her powers more, but he's going the very, Mr. Miyagi route, wax on, wax off type of thing, and she thinks we're kind of going slow, but it's like, right, you gotta learn how to walk before you run type of situation. And so it's not the fast process she wanted, because it's like, right, you did kind of have me jump off a bridge before. He's like, right, but I think he realizes, like, that was kind of the initial jolt necessary, but now it's like, no, we need to take things slow and steady, because maybe his way of handling things was always kind of like, yeah, quick, but it's like, right, that's not what's necessary. Maybe because his circumstances, power-wise and stuff like that, what Naomi is capable of needs to be slowly etched out. Once again, don't know what her powers really are, like how they work, and even what she's fully capable of. But her life is a little... She herself isn't as centered as she used to be, because obviously in this episode, the conversation comes up about, like going to college, and it's like, there's a very specific college. She's one of those people who mapped out her life, like, she knew what her 10-year plan was going to be type of thing. And now all that came like upheavaled, because now she knows the truth of like, right, I'm not even human, I'm an alien. And now bits and pieces of like that truth are slowly unveiling themselves, changing her entire world, changing her entire perception. Because it's so interesting, knowing for so long, having an idea of who she was. Like, even though she knew she was adopted, she knew every facet of her story to some extent. Now she's in the process of asking more questions, and sadly she's not getting all the answers she potentially would want to get. So, and for her, she knows one place she can potentially get the answers, even though D was like, don't go to Zimbardo. Like, you're not going to be able to get the answers from him, because I think it is a thing of D knows he's not someone that can be trusted. So, but I love the whole her and Annabelle thing, how they manipulated that lady by being like, like we got my mom got like this really good car, but it was old, used. I got a 20% like discount because of living in the town for so long. The lady was like, I've lived here forever and I didn't get a discount. I was like, well, let's go down there. I'm like, what are you guys, like, how is this helping? Like, you're going with her and everything. It's like, right. Because Zimbardo doesn't want to cause a scene. So it's like, right, ma'am, you want to look at a cheaper car? Sure. And so they end up breaking into the safe. And, Naomi luckily uses her powers. Once again, not fully understanding, like I said, it seems like it's an energy thing is what her power does seem like it is. Like I said, a buildup of energy and stuff like that. I don't know how she necessarily opened the lock. Maybe it's like she kind of like gathered energy and just maybe she can... Because like the transmutation thing comes up in this episode, so I'm wondering, like, can she shape energy into different forms? So does she turn it into like kind of electricity to kind of go through it and unlock the safe? Because she didn't blow it up at the very least, so that's good. But the moment she left, you see that look on Zimbardo's face. It's like, he was hoping you would do that. So I guess basically we end up finding out the one that she took, the disc, was a fake. So I was thinking at first of like, you have it there and you're happy and everything, because she used her powers, and her using her powers supercharged it to do whatever you needed it to do. So I'm curious, though, the transmutation, like, obviously it gets explained by the dude Adam later on. It's just making something out of nothing. So it's like, is that part of Zimbardo's ability? Like, is that some of his power? Or did someone else make that for him? So I'm assuming that was by his own hand, which I'm also like, if he can do that, that makes him super deadly. Like, to be it almost seems like, are there no consequences? Because in my head, when I'm thinking transmutation and stuff like that, I'm thinking Full Metal Alchemist, that there's a price to pay, there's a need for equivalent exchange. You can get around the equivalent exchange, but it's going to like sucker punch you in the face in the worst way possible. So I'm wondering, is there some backlash to like whoever, whether it's Zimbardo or whether it was someone else, like making something out of nothing doesn't seem like you just get a freebie. Like, it seems like that's going to cost. Now, what is going to cost? Who knows? But obviously, at the time before they found out it was a fake disc, Naomi's trying to figure out, like, okay, like, what this actually is. So she ends up involving Jacob, because it's like, right, like, because they're doing college tours and stuff like that. So, like, let's go to this college tour, like, place to test it out, because, like, there's a really good science place where we can, at the school, that allow us to check on the symbols and stuff like that. And everyone's pretty much there. And I love the whole like passing of the buck thing of like Annabelle doesn't want to be left out because she's like, no, you don't like tell LeBron not to play basketball. He's good, right? No, I'm like, hey, I get it, Annabelle. Like, I know nothing about sports either. I know a little here and there. You're in good company. But I love that was always the passing of the buck of like, well, Jacob's like, no, you have to take me because I'm the science guy. And she's like, well, you can't bench LeBron. And then it's like, Nathan was like, well, I want to go too. Well, Anthony decided to come at the last minute. He was like, no, I don't want to get left out of it. I'm like, I love no one's like, no, I want to go. No, I want to go. No, I want to go. No, somebody has to stay behind and cover us. But then Lourdes showed up and she's like, no, it looks like you're fine. And it's like, yeah, so like, what are you guys up to and stuff like that? So I thought that was fascinating. We also learned quite a bit about Lourdes. I thought she was maybe a little older than what she was. It seems like she's about the same age as him because it turns out she's not in school anymore because she's actually in the process of getting her GED. And as Naomi's like, oh, that kind of puts her in a higher process than us because obviously like there's at least, I'm assuming they're all juniors because Naomi says she's a junior. So her getting closer to her GED is like her basically being closer to graduation than they are. We never really got into the specifics of it, but basically her dad was involved in something, an accident or something, and she's like, yeah, and what was it, like either got kicked out of school, I don't remember what the circumstances were. Like there was just something about her family situation. She touched on it the tiniest bit, but she seems like amongst anyone, she seems like the biggest enigma. She seems like such an open book, but like at this point we like know next to nothing about her. So I'm just curious. I mean, other than her and Naomi like bonding over being like the big comic book nerds that they are. Once again, it's just that crazy thing of just like that fourth wall element of like, right, like there are prominent comics in this world of like, oh yeah, comics of DC, comics about Zatanna, even though like, you know, Zatanna should exist because Superman exists, but maybe this is a world where maybe, because once again, like heroes are kind of seen as myths and legends. They, you know, like Superman, it's like, no, superheroes don't exist in this continuity, in this world. So just because Superman doesn't mean anything else in the DC continuity exists. It could be a thing of Zatanna doesn't exist, no Batman, no Green Arrow, no Flash, no Cyborg, so on and so forth, you know? Snuck into a place, tried to examine the disc, basically firing lasers at it to examine it. Sadly, it went kapoof, and I was like, right, it's a fake. And now they get in trouble, which I love the whole conversation. I'm like, well, they won't go too hard on us because this is our first time getting in trouble. It's like, but Nathan was like, or maybe they'll throw the book at us because, you know, to make an example of us. So it's like suspension and stuff like that. Jacob's like, will we get a record? You know, so... but it's that parenting thing that Naomi's mom does. It's the beautiful thing of, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. It's like, every parent knows that cuts deeper. Unless your kid's a complete and utter tool and you're like, I don't care about your disappointment. You're disappointing your parents is going to cut a little bit deeper than them just be, because at least rage, you can feel like, oh, like, that'll pass. Disappointment, you're just like, oh, like, I screwed up so bad. Like, I don't want you to feel like, I don't want to feel like I let you down, especially in Naomi's eyes, because it's like, oh, she's never been in a situation with her parents. She talks about it later. She never gets in an argument with her parents. The fact that she broke her promise to her mom because she was supposed to come home at 6. She apparently was like, she's like, didn't you get my text? And then she lies about like, oh, I was with Lourdes. So I was like, could have come up with a different lie. She could have also told, like, there are ways around the truth she could have skirted. She could have been like, all right, I'm going to tell you the truth, Mom and Dad. I've been looking into my biological parents. And it's like, oh, what have you found? Well, nothing so far. Like, that's all you had to do. Like, but I think it's just maybe that just speaks volumes about Naomi. She'd rather keep quiet than actually lie to him. Well, I was about to say she did actually straight up lie to him, but it's also like, right, she can't tell her parents the truth about everything because it's like, right, I've been looking into this like weird stuff because it turns out, hey, Mom and Dad, I'm actually an alien. So understandable, like you would rather kind of lie to them than like tell them the truth because you don't know how they'll react. 2, you don't also want to worry them. So I'm sure there's a lot kind of going through her mind on like how things could ultimately play out in that regard. But luckily, Dee introduced her to Adam, who Adam's like very like, oh, he's kind of like, yo, like everything's energy, man. Like he's kind of got like that, like, I always feel weird using the word hippie because I feel like that can be so like negative connotation to it. Like it can feel a little derogatory to be like, oh, hippie, but like, you know, you got that like, oh man, it's all good, bro, like vibes, like kind of like some Shaggy vibes, you know? And so his power allows him to read energy, and it turns out he can connect Naomi to the disc because they have the same energy, like she's a key to it, which that's what Zimbardo's whole point is. It's like she is a key. Side note, the person he met, I have to look into this because it was bothering me because like every time I see the previews and you see Akira, because we got introduced to her this episode, I was like, is that Stephanie March? The thing I best know her from is Law and Order SVU. I'm blanking on her character's name because it's been a while. The other thing I associate it with is there's that movie, was it Down to Earth with Chris Rock? I believe that was the movie. Like, I think she was in that. Was that? Because I think that's the movie he was. No, or was it a different movie? It's the movie where like Chris Rock is running for president. I don't remember what movie that was, but it had her and God, is it? Oh God, I'm blanking on the actress's name and it's bothering the crap out of me. It's God, what is her character's name from Castle? Lenny? Like, you've seen her in so many things. I know, like, she's kind of like the love interest in that. Regardless, I'm going on a total tangent. But I didn't see her name at the beginning, not unless I missed it, not unless it was like in the opening credits or not. I'm not sure, but he was talking to Akira about her being a key. And I think this kind of gives us some perspective on things. So, obviously, there are aliens from all over the place here. But the way Zimbardo talks about it, and obviously the term the 29 comes up later. So, I'm wondering, is Naomi, Zimbardo, Akira, and the other 28 people? Like, I wonder, are they 30 and is Zimbardo and Naomi 30 and 31, or is it a situation of like, I'm assuming like they are just the 29 in general, so maybe he doesn't count as part of that 29, but I'm wondering, are they all from the same planet? Because Akira makes a point later on, because he was like, right, do you ever miss home? And she's like, it doesn't matter if I do, because I can never go back because of you. So I'm wondering, are they refugees? Because we haven't really gotten into like, well, for one, why D is here on this planet. We know why Clark is. I'm Superman. We know his circumstances. Obviously, not unless they're changing it, be like, oh, that's his circumstance in the comics. Who knows what it actually is in this continuity? I'm assuming it's true to the character all the way through. So I'm assuming, like, even in this continuity of Superman being a comic, I don't think they'd stray away from Superman's character still being the whole Krypton exploded, you landed on Earth type of thing. Especially because it does seem like they're making a point to parallel Superman's story with Naomi's. And so, we don't know why D is here. Like, what happened to Thanagar? Thanagar, like, is it gone? Is he the only one of his species here on this planet? That becomes the question. Like, are they the biggest bulk of aliens, like the 29? Like, are they actually from the same planet? And I'd assume so, considering, like, the way Zimbardo and Akira were talking, like, yeah, from the same planet. What species are they? Like I said, are they refugees? Were they escaping a war? Did Zimbardo try to do some revolutionary stuff and it came back to bite them? And now they can never go home. Like, what are the circumstances? It seems like he did something he thought was for the greater good, but it's like, yeah, you ended up screwing all of us. So, because Akira's basically kept herself hidden for the past 16 years. So the question is, like, what about the others? Like, have they been doing the same thing? Do they not? Because Akira's like, I hate this planet. The noises, the humans, the things they eat, it disgusts me. But this place ends up being my safe space. It's the one place where I can feel at least some form of normalcy. Is all the other aliens trying to do the same thing? What role does Naomi play in this? Like, obviously the disc is a part of something much bigger. But obviously it's not just all that is going down. The military obviously blows up at Adam's spot. Luckily, Naomi ended up getting out of there with D at the time, because that probably would have turned into a very nasty issue. Because at first I was kind of like, oh, that's going to be complicated, considering the fact is that we know her dad is working with the military on this. So I was like, oh, that would have probably turned complicated. I doubt he would be leading the strike force. He's probably aware of everything, but now with the context later in the episode, it's like, no, he's not apprised to all the stuff that the government's up to. Like, those decisions, he's part of the group, but he doesn't get to make those choices. So I was wondering whether or not he was going to actually be out in the field and if he was going to be one of the people that attacked Adam's place, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. But I also love that obviously this episode leans into kind of the naivety of, Naomi, being so steadfast and believing, like, right, she has these powers, let me use them. Dee's kind of restricting me on using them. He says I'm not ready. I would be ready if he let me kind of go ham and use them a little bit. But for him, it's like, no, like, you need to take this at a time. Slow and steady runs a race. Don't try and sprint. This is a marathon. But she didn't listen to his advice. And I thought it was kind of interesting when Annabelle just rolled up. At first I was suspicious. I was like, whoa, what are you doing just rolling up like that? Are you a fake Annabelle created by Zimbardo? Turned out not to be the case. But she mainly came over because it was like, tried to call you, but you didn't pick up. Parents took her phone. Once again, like, she is never the troublemaker, and that's why she was like, why are you guys acting like this? Like, you legitimately, I've been out later, you've never worried about where I've been, and I'm like, oh, okay. Even before we got into it later, I'm like, because of all this stuff. So, well, of course, like, her dad was going to bring her mom into the fold about everything. I mean, they both have, like, military clearance and stuff like that. She wasn't brought in on it, but it's like, right, he has, like, no, she has every right to know, like, what's going on, what we got to protect our child from. So, it's like, right, which I was kind of scared at the beginning, come like, oh man, are they going to have that negative alien perception of things? And what's that going to mean when it comes to Naomi when they eventually find out the truth about her? I was scared. I was like, that's going to be bad, because Dee was wondering about, like, he had said, like, oh yeah, that was a military team that did that. And she was like, no, if it was a military thing, like, my dad would know. And, you know, that's why she was like, kind of like, no way. But I think that moment made her probably think like, oh wait, maybe Dee was onto something that maybe you guys do know about it, you know, but they weren't telling her the truth either. So they were on her about not telling the truth, but even they realized, because it was upsetting, because they also recognized, like, right, we aren't telling you the truth either. So because she met up with Lourdes, and Lourdes basically pointed her in the right direction, referencing like a Zatanna comic, Naomi went with Annabelle to go to like that underground thing to find the translation key for that disc. And I love that it's like, Naomi's like, hey, you're probably asking why we're here. And the guy's like, I don't care. Just don't tag up the tunnel. Puts his headphones back on. I was like, okay, I'm legitimately curious what lie you were going to spew out your mouth to get you down there. But nevertheless, to get access to the Rosetta Stone, as they kind of put it, she ended up using her powers. Couldn't control it like she thought, and she basically calls a cave-in, which made her go like, yeah, I'm sorry I disobeyed your orders, Dee, but also the fact is I almost killed me and my best friend in the process. That is going to make you go like, right, I'm not as in control. Which Dee's like, hey, I appreciate your honesty, I appreciate you telling me I was right, but also it's like, this imbalance you're feeling isn't something abnormal. Like, everyone feels it, you know? It kind of, she drops the only thing she was able to translate was the 29. So, like I said, we still have no context for that, but obviously there's still bad blood, you know, with whatever went down with potentially the 29 and Zimbardo. But the fact is that he's even, like, the fact is he wants Akira on his side, but she's like, no, like, that girl, she's nothing more than a pawn to you. Like, it seems almost like she has some sympathy towards Naomi. She doesn't want to just use her. But it's like, yeah, don't act like you care about her. She's just a means to an end to you. I'm not going to be party to that. Like, things are dangerous. For one, we're being hunted by the humans. Two, like, her role in all of this, too, like, she can't co-sign a lot of that, I think. So, not really sure how to make, 100% heads or tails of all of that, but him even going as far as being like, oh, like, if you're not going to help me, I'm going to make sure you stay out of my way. She's like, you can try, because we still don't know what Akira can do. But, yeah. Because obviously the key, or the disc, is starting to activate because her powers charged it enough to kind of do that. So, what other secrets that key, that disc has, we don't know. What other role as a key Naomi feels in this regard, we don't know as well. But after everything, she finally writes her essay for college, and she talks about and I think it's an interesting perspective. Obviously, it's like the truth. Is it always a good thing to tell the truth? Some circumstances, yes, but people can't be honest all the time, because sometimes a lie doesn't hurt and isn't as brutal as sometimes just straight up being truthful. So she tried to be as honest with her parents as possible, not telling them everything, but apologizing. It's like, I want us to be good. I want you guys to know you're the most important thing to me, and I'm sorry. and they're like, right, we got to show you something. And the moment they're driving her away, and it's like, and they tell her about aliens, I was like, the moment I was after, like, oh, you guys know about her being an alien, because I wasn't sure. So the backstory isn't something the government came, like, that's why I was like, did someone, like, was, because I was curious about Naomi's situation, like, I mean, in retrospect, it's like, well, of course they had to have, like, known and concocted the whole thing. I'm sure very much like John and Martha Kent did, but the fact is that her backstory, like, I guess in my head I thought legitimately she landed on this planet and then got taken into like an adoption agency, and then like her parents found her. But it's like, no, where they found her is in the middle of the woods, which I love. They're like, are you going to bring me out here to shoot you? It's like, wait, we changed your diaper and raised you for like 16 years, and you think we're going to take you out to the woods and kill you? It's like, I don't know, you made me watch so many horror movies growing up. But it's like, no, this is where we found you. So it's like, now she knows, like, okay, so we can be a little bit more honest with each other. You know I'm an alien. I know I'm an alien. So that's why her dad took this position and stuff, because he wanted to kind of try and keep her life as normal as possible, trying to protect her, because he didn't know when they might eventually find out the truth about, because they probably did a good enough job covering their tracks on what Naomi's situation is. They probably backtracked like a lot of paperwork to make, probably there's some dead ends, probably, that if people look too hard, they'll find out the truth about. There's some inconsistencies and just some blank information when it comes to Naomi. So her parents at the end of the day were just trying to do whatever they could to protect her. But now it's like, right, you have to know the truth about who you are, because it's the only way we can protect you. Only by knowing can you know what to look out for. So it's interesting that they were so like, oh, this Superman thing has got to be BS, knowing that Naomi, well, maybe they never knew that she was an alien. They knew she was something else, but maybe they never knew she was an alien until it's like, yeah, aliens are here and they're potentially a threat. So it's like, right, if the world found out, the military, if the government found out, they look at our daughter as a threat. So now, like I said, at least she can be a little bit more honest with her parents. There don't have to be any more secrets anymore, because now it's all out there. I'm sure there's going to be the thing of like, yeah, you guys kind of kept this secret from me for like 16 years. Maybe it seemed like I was just a normal kid, when in actuality you knew I wasn't. Maybe, once again, maybe they didn't know alien, but you knew there were some weird circumstances to my situation. But still, it's definitely going to be interesting to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.